Maybe you don't even need the product, but you already feel annoyed, right? Just even thinking about it. Why isn't it even shipped? It's not even on the way. I understand maybe a day late, but now it's going to be 3 days late, 4 days late. I don't even know what's going on. Do they even have it? Did they lose it? Hi, I'm Zach. I've been a software developer for the last 12 years. I've also been running a marketing and development agency for the last 7, in which we've been able to generate over $13 million in revenue for our clients. Today, I'm going to be talking about the importance of transparency when you're dealing with your clients and how this is going to make them much happier with you, get angry with you much less often, and hopefully not at all. First things first, why is it that customers get frustrated or annoyed with us in the first place? Well, the number one reason that I've found, they don't feel understood or they don't feel like they know what's going on. If we think about it, it makes sense, right? If whenever there's uncertainty or you feel like you're not getting what you paid for or what you wanted, then it automatically invokes a feeling of stress, right? Let's think about why is it that they paid for the service? And it was to solve a problem that they have. So they started out with one problem, and now if they don't feel like there's clarity in the work with us, now they have 2 problems because they have the original problem and now they have us, which is now making the first problem even more complicated. So we're just making things worse if they feel that way. Now, in reality, you might have been doing really great work. You were right about to turn it in, but you didn't tell them that. Think about Amazon, one of the most successful companies in the world. Don't worry, I'm not going to treat you like you're Amazon. But there's one lesson that we can learn, and that is when you order a product, you're expecting it to be delivered in 2 to 3 days. But then it's day 3 and it still says it hasn't even shipped yet. How do you feel? Maybe you don't even need the product, but you already feel annoyed, right? Just even thinking about it. Why isn't it even shipped? It's not even on the way. I understand maybe a day late, but now it's going to be 3 days late, 4 days late. I don't even know what's going on. Do they even have it? Did they lose it? Right? All of these things are already running through your mind. You were excited to get this thing. You were excited to solve whatever need you were buying the thing for, and yet it was simply the transparency. It could already be on your doorstep right now. But first, you're frustrated just because of the lack of transparency or the lack of clarity or understanding. Now, are there crazy people who are just annoying micromanagers? Yes, absolutely. But the majority of people are not confrontational like that. They don't want to be bothering people. So it's more likely that it's probably the lack of communication. Communication can also just make sure that even when something negative is happening, because you will have mistakes that come up, or maybe you did lose the package or the shipment, but communication is going to at least resolve it, because people would much rather receive bad news than get shocked at the last moment. Maybe you've tried this type of communication before and they didn't respond to you, or they ignored you, or you felt like your messages were just being sent for no reason. They're probably not even reading these. I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm just throwing all my work into a void, and then they're just going to get the final work, and there was no point in me doing it. In reality, that's not the case. Everybody checks their emails if they're in business, right? But under the cover, they are feeling more satisfied and building up trust in you, in the fact that you don't give them extra work by making them follow up with you. I even have the issue nowadays where if I hire somebody off of a platform like Upwork versus just not hiring them on a platform and I just have to work with them independently, I find it much more stressful having to deal with the people that I don't hire through platforms, because the platforms give me themselves their own regular status updates. And I also feel like I'm hassling the contractor less. So it's just a more pleasant experience that I can just see what they're doing, what they've already done, and I can just ask them questions if I have any. I don't need to bother them every day checking in. Hey, what got done yesterday? Hey, it's the end of the week. Can you just let me know what you did the last few days? I don't need to bother them because I just know throughout. And then what happens after you've checked on this person so many times, or they've sent you so many status updates, is you trust them much more deeply than the person where you give them something and it's like a black box. You don't know what's going on inside there. You don't know what they do. You don't know how long it takes. You don't know if you're being undercharged, overcharged. People usually have the difficulty with charging more for a service unless they explain that, oh, we work on this for 200 hours to get this result. and then another person isn't able to charge for their expertise when they say, oh, I'm able to do the same work, but I can do it in 20 hours, but I want the same amount of money because I'm very experienced and that's why I'm able to do it so quickly. People have difficulty usually making that jump from hourly billing to value-based billing. So that is sort of a trade-off, because if you're communicating that you don't do that much work on it or that much time of work, you might need to be making that jump to value-based if you're not actually working that much. So that is one caveat. You need to then be able to sell yourself on value-based pricing instead of hourly-based. So that's one thing that you need to keep in mind if you're going to try this like radical transparency. So how can you do this without adding a whole other full-time job to yourself? By becoming this pseudo project manager at the same time as doing the initial job. There isn't a way to fully outsource it or use ChatGPT to do it. I definitely don't recommend that. There are some features in apps like Asana that can summarize things for you. They have their own AI that will do sort of a summarization of a project status or task status, but I don't think it actually even requires that much thought or that much consolidation. Usually what works just fine is giving a very basic email. So you might just do an email every 3 days, 4 days, depending on your project life cycles and how long they are. You'd want to just be breaking it up so that if you notice that after a week of not talking to a client, they start to get antsy, maybe you should be talking to them every 2 to 3 days. If you notice every 2 weeks, then maybe you do it once a week, give them a weekly update, and then just standardize that. One thing that you could do, which would be semi-automatic, is if your projects usually take the same amount of time, is you could set up automated semi-generic emails that just tell them at what point of the project development are you at. So if a project takes 2 weeks, maybe you set up an automated email sequence that will tell them on day 3, we've just finished drafting out the design. On day 6, we've just started the development. On day 8, development's about halfway done. Day 10, we're ready for QA. That type of a thing. I mean, this was a development example, but you get the picture, right? Where you can just break it up and just give them a generic email explaining where you're at. Now you could instead semi-automate this by making it like a template, and then you just have one of your people or yourself will just fill in the bits of the template if you need to tailor it a little bit more, otherwise they'll be confused. So it doesn't take much, just kind of communicate before they have a chance to. You never really want to be in the position where they're following up with you. It still happens to me even, but I've noticed that by doing that, it's almost like they just don't ask me questions anymore. And that's kind of nice, where you can just drill through the project, get things done on time, or even when you're running late, they mind less because they feel fully informed and they actually already understand why it's running late. It's because you told them on day 22 that this was taking longer for this reason. They understand and they feel more reasonable because you've kept them informed the whole time. So it's something I definitely recommend trying. It is very hard to make them upset by doing this. If you're emailing them so much that they say, please stop emailing me, just tell me when it's done, you've already achieved that level of trust. So it's kind of worth trying to find that upper bound, right? Or they will tell you, that's enough, I just want to hear once a week, that's too much. Well, now you know. And then you can bring it back down, and that's probably the level that you should sustain. So yeah, I definitely recommend it. Give it a try, and I hope that helps. But that's all for today. Thank you.